Tip dry is part of airbrushing. It's something we all have to deal with at some point. We have a constant stream of air flowing over the tip of the needle. The tip of the needle just happens to be where the paint is carried from the airbrush into the atmosphere. Airflow obviously helps to dry paint, so it stands to reason that at some point we're going to get a little bit of paint dried on the tip of the needle, and that causes erratic spray performance from your airbrush. Left unchecked, it can create some issues. A pretty good indicator that you might have some tip dry beginning to accumulate on the tip of your needle is if you have to pull the trigger back a little bit farther than normal in order to get paint to flow. That's a good indicator. Another great indicator that tip dry is starting to occur is just listening to your airbrush. Here's an example of one of my airbrushes working the way it's supposed to. See what I mean? That sounded very normal. It's just a normal stream of airflow running over the tip of the needle, carrying the paint onto the canvas. Here's another clip. See if you can notice the difference. Did you hear the difference? Let's play it one more time. You see what I mean? There's a definite difference between the airflow sound in a normal operating airbrush and the sound when the airbrush is beginning to get some tip dry on the tip of the needle. What's happening is the airflow is no longer following that nice tapered needle out of the airbrush and onto the canvas. Now it's being interrupted because it has to go around a small speck of paint on the tip of the airbrush. That's why it changes the tone of the airflow. Here's a couple more clips just to illustrate my point. So just simply listening to your airbrush while you are operating it can give you pretty good indicators on whether or not everything's working correctly as it should, or maybe you need to address some tip dry issues on your needle. Now, if you're one of those people that likes to blast the music while you're airbrushing, I completely understand that. I used to be the same way. I don't so much anymore, simply because of copyright issues when I'm creating videos. But if you are one of those types of people, then pay attention to your trigger control. Again, if you have to pull back on the trigger slightly farther than normal in order to just get paint to flow, that's also an indicator that you probably have some tip dry building on the tip of your needle. Left unchecked, tip dry can be a pretty serious issue because the paint is not atomizing as well, it's not flowing as well onto the canvas. Again, it can splatter paint versus atomize the paint finely, and creating a nice fine detailed line becomes a lot more difficult when you have a lot of tip dry on the end of your needle. So I hope that helps you out. I hope you guys got something out of this. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, and share. I'm Trevor with Wicked Art Studio. I'll see you guys next week.